with Property Mythbusters. I'm Ken from Avvora Finance.
And I'm Debra Beck-Mewing from Crave Property Advisory.
And I'm Gilmovich from Real Property Manager. Thanks for joining us today. Property Mythbusters is all about debunking the myths of property investing.
That's right.
So we're here to clear up some facts surrounding your venture into the property investing world. And today's a great topic. We're having a look at hotspotting reports. So what are, you're having a giggle there.
That's right.
So what are hotspotting reports? So for those that don't know, there are companies or consultants or property consultants out there that produce, if you like, the crystal ball reporting into particular areas or suburb picking and put those forward on a hotspotting list, and they could be seen or dressed up as like your top 10 suburbs in 2020 that are going to have fantastic capital growth. Now, Debra, what are the challenges around hotspotting reports as being a tool, if you like, for picking the perfect property investment?
I think these reports are just a really big trap for people. Number one, the data is usually about 2 months old, so these people who produce the reports usually pull their data from, say, land planning or whatever, but they don't actually register any sales for about until the property is settled. So the data they're getting is really old. And as we've seen, even just in the last couple of months, we've seen the market turn so quickly that a suburb will be burnt before anybody gets there. The people who actually run these reports are usually not property minded, and they usually will take an economist view. So they'll just focus on the numbers and not, like sales or like a few other criteria.
Yes.
But they're not actually looking at the deeper data. But the worst thing, I think, is that each person's top 10 suburb list will be different. So yours, the criteria that you need to use to buy a property will be different to yours, as will mine. And so what I see is a lot of people coming in to see me saying, I've got this report, I want to buy here. And I'll give them, 500 reasons why the next 20 suburbs are much better than...
So most of the, there's a few players in the space that actually run a business hotspotting suburbs or suburb picks, if you like, and they, in fact, come across as really genuine.
Yeah.
They kind of deliver great data and maps and baffle you with all these numbers and figures. However, the bottom line is they're actually not in the market themselves.
That's right. They're not buying property day in, day out because they're sitting behind, the screen. But yeah. So what are your thoughts on this, Ken?
Well, with hotspotting specifically, I guess if it is a rapidly rising market, because data sometimes comes out, it takes a while for data to come through anyhow. But valuations could be probably an issue if it is growing really quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of the valuers use sold prices, and if it's moving quite rapidly, they may take a more conservative approach to how they value it, and that could affect the loan application and approval. If the LVR is high, it could make or break a application. And I probably would say credit policies is another thing. So sometimes, I think way back, mining towns was one of the go for finding positively geared property, and previously it was okay, but now you find that it's probably locked down and restricted in terms of there's postcode restrictions on how much they would lend for purchasers. Generally, they lock out LVRs, or they cap LVRs. Okay,
so Mr. and Mrs. Smith, as an example, comes in with a hotspotting report. Said, Ken, I've just downloaded this from Hotspotting Proprietary Limited. Here's their top 10 suburb picks, and they've gone and circled this particular postcode
Yep.
and handing it over and want to borrow money. How are these reports actually looked at, do you think, by the lenders?
The lender, they don't actually take that into consideration, I'd say. So, especially when it's a report like that, sometimes it's like holiday home, high density units. So it also depends on the security type as well. So not just the location. So when the lenders assess the application, there's like the 5 C's of credit. Collateral is one of them, which is the actual thing they use as security. If they're not comfortable with it, they're not going to proceed.
It's a deal breaker.
Yeah,
it's a deal breaker.
So you could even have really strong cash flow and have solid income, very little expenses, and more than capable of borrowing twice the amount. But if they're not happy with the security, it's going to be a challenge.
Deborah, do hotspotting guys ever get it right?
No. I was just about to give you a little bit of an example. What I have seen with these reports, and look, just for fun, I do keep my eye on them. But what astounds me is you'll see these random suburbs in the top of the list, like the Milky Way. Just because one property is sold, all of a sudden it's a hotspot, or there's been some hint of maybe there might be a train line going out this way. Oh, well, let's go. Let's
take off. And that's an interesting point. And do you think that, like the actual hotspotting reports, is there something more? For example, I guess those consultants are influencers, if you like.
Well, they're trying to be
in this space where they're almost influencing a decision to be made.
They're usually trying to get attention for other services that they're going to sell people.
Okay, so is there an actual? Do you think there's an actual bigger plan around these reports where? I guess they start off with a kind of a quick free seminar, entice people to join, and then it moves on and unfolds into something more deeper, where they're putting them on the bus and taking them into the area and showing them all these great properties in that particular hotspot.
Get back home until you sign on the dotted line.
That's right. Right.
That still goes on, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is one bright shining light.
Tell us.
And I would say, and that's Lewis Christopher from SQM Research.
Yes.
So he has got the best track record. He's a forecaster, and the majority of his information is available free.
So here's the huge difference. He's a forecaster versus a postcode picker or hotspotter.
Right. Yeah, and he has his own research and, all of them say they have their own criteria, but his is actually the most reliable. And I would say, once again, even his information just should be used as one of the pieces of information that you would use to choose a suburb. And a lot of people do that. They say, oh yes, I used this as a starting point, but I think there's plenty of better ways to start.
Okay, well let's now discuss what can we suggest, what are our suggestions here to investors that potentially have come across a hotspotting report. What should they be doing rather than just relying 100% on that report?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Check to see if you can secure the finance, because if you are needing the finance to proceed with the purchase, and there's no lender, or there's only one or two lenders who are able to do it, it might be a factor in whether you should proceed or not, because that might flow on effect post settlement. Maybe you do get the property, but what happens if those last few lenders make a decision about their risk appetite in that area or whatever, and then you're kind of left with this situation where you're kind of stuck in that loan because no one's. So it's not really liquidity, but the ability to see what happens post settlement, what are some of the risks and things like that, something to take into consideration.
Okay, Deborah?
So I would say that the number one thing people should do is start with your own criteria and then move on from there. But if you do see some of these reports, just validate the information that's included in the report. And it's easy enough to do. Just go to any one of the housing platforms, so realestate.com or Domain. They all now have very good information about each suburb. And of course, not only about the suburb, you've got to look for what is happening for the type of property that you want to buy. Like units, like we're seeing at the moment in Sydney, units are like really bad, not performing, whereas freestanding houses are off the charts.
Okay, so you're saying go and seek independent advice, and that could be either
I would say that, but that was
that's
another thing.
Let's say another buyer's agent or property expert that's actually buying in those areas.
Yeah,
or would you say go directly to the estate agents who are transacting in that area and get a feel?
Something on the field as well. I mean, maybe even property managers and things like that within that area, because they're getting insights, especially if it's from an investment point of view. You know what is happening in that rental market.
That's actually
that kind
very
So check that validate the report that might say you're going to get 9% or 8%, those really high return or yields, and validate that by calling a property manager or having a look at the rental returns online yourself. And of course, one of the big issues around the rentals at the moment is vacancy. So what's the vacancy rate of that area? Because you might not be able to find a tenant for weeks and weeks.
How do you track vacancy rates?
Absolutely.
How do you check them?
Well, one of them is SQM Research. Actually gives you fantastic data around not only the vacancy rates but the yields itself and the actual postcode rental returns, average returns, like for 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house. Great data, and guess what? It's free. Yeah, it's free at the moment. So
at the moment,
yeah.
Except Lewis's boom and bust report, so you have to pay for that. But
yes,
it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And
any other points to close off this session?
No, I think like just hearing the different items probably just take different perspectives on before entering into that particular suburb. Check the finance, check the rental yields, check what's happening. Speak to buyers agents, things like that, who can give insights to what's happening. Maybe understand what are some of the drivers behind it, as opposed to just headline items like rental yield or increase by X amount.
Top 5 best suburb picks and top 10.
But the
top 50 and so forth.
People do it because the general public loves those lists.
Yes, and guess why? Because
the media loves it.
Media loves it, and it's just, I think it's basically, it's all too hard. I'm just going to rely on this report. I'm going to take a punt because it sounds genuine, and this is where buyers can get caught up.
They think they'll get a shortcut.
Absolutely, it is a shortcut, and it's very easy to shortcut these days because people are time poor, and they don't want to do the hard yards. But this is where things go wrong. They've got to do the hard yards. They can't rely on just one hotspotting report without doing all that back-end due diligence, and I think that's the takeaway today. Yeah. You've got to go deeper into the data. Yep. And actually what's going on in those suburbs, in those reports.
And because I've got like a little summary to wrap it up. So if they say it's a hot spot, it's a not spot.
Good point.
Nice.
Yes. Okay.
Good point. Thanks very much for joining us for this session. We hope to see you again. And you can find us on our Facebook page, Property Mythbusters, and our YouTube channel, of course, as well, where you can rewatch the video and share it. Like and share it, and we'll be back for more sessions real soon.
And also, you can contact us through any of our
individual
corporate websites. Yes, or social.
Okay. It's a wrap. All the best.
Thanks.